Have you ever wondered why the darkest parts of your life feel so heavy, so unbearable, yet somehow they also feel ancient, magnetic, and full of untapped energy? Like there's something buried inside your pain that's trying to break free. That's no accident. That's not trauma alone. That's not just shadow work. That's coded potential, hiding in the frequencies of your suffering. We've been taught to run from darkness, to escape it, to heal it, to fix it. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if the darkness wasn't the enemy, but the initiation? What if the things you've been trying to get rid of are actually the very things designed to awaken your hidden power? I've seen it firsthand. I've experienced it. I've walked through the fire, and I've seen people rise from their own ashes. Not because they avoided their darkness, but because they entered it deliberately, with reverence, with courage. And when they did, something ancient awakened in them, something unteachable, something remembered. There are powers, real, energetic, spiritual, vibrational powers, that only activate when you face the darkest layers of your vibration. These are not powers you earn through affirmations or surface-level healing. These are primordial keys, forged in shadow, waiting to be claimed. Raider, Aussie, dangerous if misused, but divine when mastered. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat with your most shameful memory, not to fix it, not to reframe it, but to listen to it, to feel what message it carried? To ask it, what are you trying to unlock in me? Most people never do. They shove it down. They cover it with light. But here's the paradox. The more light you shine on something, the more shadow it creates behind it if you're unwilling to face its root. The first rare power hiding in your vibration is the power of energetic sight. This is not clairvoyance in the way most people think. This is the ability to feel truth inside energy. It doesn't come from activating your third eye through meditation. It comes from being betrayed, lied to, manipulated, gaslit. It comes from having your reality shattered so many times that you no longer trust appearances. You start to see through people, through words, through spiritual masks. You no longer hear what someone says, you feel the frequency behind it. And once this power is awakened, it doesn't turn off. You walk into rooms and immediately sense what's out of alignment. You feel energy like others feel temperature. You can read truth in silence and lies in perfectly crafted sentences. And the key to unlocking that, your pain, your trauma, the exact moments you thought broke you. The second rare power is the power of alchemical rage. Now, rage is a forbidden word in spiritual circles. But that's because most people don't understand it. Rage, when distorted, can destroy. But rage, when sacred, is the fire of transformation. It's the dragon within you that awakens when you've been silenced for too long. It's not about screaming or hurting others. It's about awakening the part of you that refuses to be small. The part that says, no more. The part that sets energetic boundaries that don't need to be spoken. But here's the trick. This power only activates when you stop fearing your anger. When you allow yourself to feel it, not act it out, but feel it fully, without shame. That's when it crystallizes into spiritual fire. That's when it becomes a tool, not a weapon. The third rare power is the power of soul memory. This one is subtle but profound. It doesn't come during peak moments of joy. It comes in the void, when everything is stripped away, when you're left with nothing but silence. Soul memory is the sudden knowing of who you were before the trauma, before the conditioning, before this life. It's not intellectual. It's cellular. It's like your DNA starts whispering secrets to you. You remember how you used to move, how you used to speak, the kind of power you used to carry. And here's the kicker. It often comes in moments of deep despair, when you're so broken open that the ego finally stops screaming, and in that quiet, your soul speaks. Have you ever wept and suddenly felt like you weren't alone? Like you were holding yourself? That's soul memory. That's the ancient you waking up inside your pain. And I want to pause here and ask you something you may not be ready to answer. What if your suffering has always been the map back to your multidimensional self? What if every painful experience was encoded with coordinates? Not to trap you, but to activate you. These powers don't come cheap. They are earned through presence in pain, through devotion to your evolution, through refusing to numb when everything inside you begs for escape. And yes, it's brutal. Yes, it feels unfair. But what if that unfairness is actually precision? What if your life has been orchestrated to initiate you into mastery? You see, most people want their powers to come from light, from bliss, from meditation. But the deepest powers, the rarest ones, are buried in the realm no one wants to enter. The realm of grief, of shame, of rage, of rejection. That's where the core frequency of your soul hides. Not in the polished version of you, in the raw version, the version that has nothing left to prove. The fourth rare power is the power of silent magnetism. This is the power that makes people feel you before they see you. It's not charisma, it's not charm, it's presence. And presence is earned by walking through darkness and not abandoning yourself. Every time you stayed, every time you cried alone and held your own hand, every time you sat in the storm and refused to spiritually bypass it, you built presence. And that presence becomes a gravitational field. People can't name it, but they feel it. They trust it. They lean toward it. And the irony? The more you try to develop it, the more it eludes you. It only grows when you stop trying to be magnetic and start trying to be true. Let me ask you this. What if your greatest spiritual tool isn't your light, but your ability to sit in darkness without flinching? What if your vibration expands not just when you're aligned, but when you're authentic, even in your lowest moments? I've seen people with no spiritual training, no mystical background, no fancy initiations, carry more power than the most decorated teachers. Why? Because they've been to the bottom, and they didn't run. They didn't sugarcoat it. They stayed. And in that staying, in that faithful witnessing of their own shadow, the codes unlocked. You don't need to chase power. You need to reclaim the parts of you that power was buried inside of. The shameful parts, the exiled parts, the parts you were told were too much, too intense, too emotional. Those parts are not your weakness. They are your origin story. They hold your rawest frequency. And when you bring them back into your being, not with judgment, but with reverence, something incredible happens. You stop being afraid of yourself. And when you stop being afraid of yourself, nothing can control you anymore. Not people, not systems, not fear. That's true liberation. That's spiritual sovereignty. And that's what the world needs right now. Not more light workers who avoid shadow, but shadow walkers who carry light because they've earned it in the dark. We've only scratched the surface. There are still 3 more rare powers waiting to be uncovered. Powers that can only be revealed once we go even deeper, into the parts of our vibration most people never dare to enter. There comes a moment in your spiritual evolution when you stop trying to escape your wounds and start asking them questions. You sit with your heartbreak and say, "What wisdom do you carry?" You look into your shame and whisper, "What have you been protecting me from?" That moment is a turning point, because now you're not healing from a place of victimhood. You're healing from a place of sovereign curiosity. And in that space, something long dormant stirs inside you. Something inside. Something sacred. That stirring is the beginning of alchemy. And everything changes once you realize your wounds aren't flaws, they're encrypted portals. This is where the fifth rare power begins to emerge, the power of emotional alchemy. This is not just about feeling your feelings. That's step one. This is about learning how to transmute dense emotional energy into refined spiritual fuel. It's about turning grief into compassion, turning rage into clarity, turning shame into sovereignty. This is real inner alchemy, and it doesn't happen in peaceful moments. It happens when you're on the floor, breathless, with your past collapsing on top of you, and suddenly, you stop resisting. You start transforming. You begin to understand that every emotion is an element, every trigger is a teacher, every breakdown is a blueprint. This power doesn't make you emotionally stable. It makes you emotionally powerful. Because now you're not at the mercy of your feelings, you're in relationship with them. You're working with them. You're crafting meaning from them. But here's the deeper truth. You can't access this power without grief. Real grief, not just sadness. Grief is a death. The death of an identity. The death of a fantasy. The death of who you thought you were supposed to be. And if you allow yourself to fully enter grief, not as a problem to fix, but as a sacred rite of passage, you unlock something most people never touch. The power of sacred emptiness. This is the sixth rare power, and it's one of the most misunderstood. Sacred emptiness is not numbness. It's not depression. It's not indifference. It's the stillness that remains after everything false has died inside you. It's the space where ego has no script. It's the silence where your soul finally speaks without interruption. It's terrifying at first, because we're addicted to noise. We're addicted to story. But once you surrender to emptiness, you realize something profound. Only in emptiness can the divine build something new. You see, we often think spiritual power is about acquiring more insight, more light, more gifts. But the greatest powers are born through loss, through the stripping away of everything that isn't real. And that process hurts. It feels like annihilation, but it's actually refinement. Your vibration is being purified, not for punishment, but for precision, for alignment, for truth. And in that furnace of loss, you become undeniable. Not because you're whole in the way the world defines wholeness, but because you're real. You're integrated. You're no longer fragmented. You're no longer performing a version of yourself that's digestible. You've become undiluted essence, and that essence begins to radiate in ways you can't fake. You don't even need to speak. People feel it. And that leads us to the seventh and final rare power hiding in your shadow, the power of subconscious transmutation. This is the ability to unconsciously shift energy around you just by being in your truth. You don't try to heal others. You don't try to guide them. Your being does the work, because your frequency has become so clear, so embodied, that it becomes a tuning fork. People feel calmer around you without knowing why. Old patterns in others begin to loosen. You trigger people, not because you're wrong, but because their systems are adjusting to your clarity. This power doesn't come from training. It comes from integration, from doing the work no one sees, from becoming so congruent inside yourself that your very existence recalibrates the room. But this power has a cost, and that cost is your old identity. You cannot be who you were and carry this frequency. You have to let the old self die again and again. You have to grieve the roles you played to survive. You have to release the need to be understood by the masses. Because once you carry this power, you will often be misunderstood. You will feel ahead of your time. You will lose relationships forged in your former frequency. And that's okay. Because the ones meant for you now, they are drawn not to your mask, but to your core. They don't need you to be soft. They need you to be true. They don't need you to explain yourself. They already feel you. So now we return to the central question. Why are your deepest powers hiding in your darkest vibration? Because that's where your truth lives. That's where your rawness lives. That's where your soul's frequency before the world touched it still echoes. And if you can go there, without flinching, without editing, without abandoning yourself, you will find gifts that no teacher can give you. You will remember that you are not here to be perfect. You are here to be whole. And wholeness includes rage. It includes grief. It includes silence. It includes shadow. You are not here to escape the dark. You are here to mine it for treasure. If you are willing to go deeper, there is still more. Because these 7 powers are not the final destination, they are only the beginning. There is a deeper layer, a forgotten level of spiritual architecture that explains why these powers waited in the dark, how your soul encoded them, and what you are meant to do with them now. That's where we go next. Most people believe their wounds are accidents, that their deepest pain is just an unfortunate side effect of being human. But what if it's not? What if your darkest experiences were not only permitted by your soul, but designed by it long before you took your first breath? What if the betrayals, the abandonment, the loss, the silence, the inner chaos were all encoded into your timeline with divine precision, not to break you, but to awaken you into a kind of intelligence that cannot be taught, only remembered? You see, your soul didn't come here to have a smooth ride. It came to activate codes, and some of those codes can only be unlocked through pain. But not just any pain, soul-specific pain. The kind that pierces straight through your illusion. The kind that strips you of your masks. The kind that forces you to meet yourself without distraction. This is the hidden blueprint. Your soul chose a frequency of darkness that would mirror the exact distortions you came here to transmute. That's why your pain feels so personal, because it is. It was chosen to match the karmic knots your lineage couldn't untangle. It was chosen to force you into spiritual rebellion, to push you so far into despair that the only way out was in. And once you begin to understand this, you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What is this for?" That's when the intelligence begins to emerge. You start seeing patterns in your suffering. You realize that every heartbreak taught you discernment. Every rejection taught you self-trust. Every silence taught you how to hear yourself. Your pain wasn't random. It was ritual, disguised as chaos. And here's the real secret. The more you decode your darkness, the more you awaken what I call divine architecture, a vibrational map of who you were before the world told you who to be. This isn't just about finding yourself. This is about building yourself back using the raw materials of your own shadow. You are not just a human healing from trauma. You are a multidimensional being reassembling your original structure. And that structure includes pain. It includes rage. It includes grief, not as obstacles, but as pillars. And the more you integrate them, the more precise your frequency becomes. You stop leaking energy. You stop performing. You stop negotiating with your worth. You become clean, not morally clean, energetically clean. And in that clean frequency, your purpose becomes unavoidable. But here's where it gets even deeper. Once you've reclaimed these shadow-born powers, your soul begins to issue instructions. You start receiving assignments, not from your ego, but from your original blueprint. These won't look like typical goals. They won't be about status or validation. They'll feel like pulls, like gravity. You'll feel drawn to certain people, certain places, certain expressions. Not because they make sense logically, but because your soul remembers them. This is the stage where your vibration becomes a beacon. You start attracting opportunities that match your refined frequency. But you also start triggering resistance in those who are still committed to illusion. That's when you'll be tested, not just spiritually, but socially. Can you stay true to who you've become, even when it costs you comfort, relationships, or reputation? This is the ultimate threshold, the place where your rare powers are no longer just for your healing, but for the healing of others. Not through saving them, but through embodying truth so deeply, so unshakably, that it becomes contagious. You walk into a room and shift the field, not because you're trying to, but because your vibration is now in command. You don't need to teach. You don't need to convince. Your presence becomes the sermon. Your life becomes the initiation. And that's the final test. Can you hold your power without needing to explain it? Can you walk in your light without needing it to be seen? Can you carry your shadow with pride, knowing that it's the very source of your strength? So I ask you now, at the end of this entire journey, not just rhetorically, but soul to soul, what have you been hiding in your shadow that's actually your superpower? What pain have you been trying to escape that's secretly your portal? And what would happen if, right now, you stopped running from your darkness and started claiming it as the sacred territory where your soul planted its rarest gifts? You've made it to the edge of something ancient. Not everyone gets here. Fewer still return. But if you're still listening, still breathing, still feeling that pull, it means something in you has already begun to remember. You're not just healing, you're activating. You're not just surviving, you're reassembling the divine. And the world needs that version of you, not the polished one, not the perfect one, the whole one. The one born from the dark, the one who remembers why you came here, the one who understands now your pain was never a punishment. It was the password.